Hello and welcome to our tutorial. So in this tutorial we are going to use Adobe After Effects. So all you guys have the Adobe suite. So I'm going to click on new project here. And this is the basic sort of interface of Adobe After Effects. So as we go through this project, which is nice and simple, we'll kind of encounter all the different windows, etc. It's quite different to video editing. It's only normally for very short, maybe for a single shot or a very, very short sequence. Although you can have a timeline as long as you like, but generally it's small pieces, and then you'll bring them back into whatever editing package you're using. So I'm going to start with new composition. Now the footage I'm going to use is 720p. So I don't know if there's a preset for that. Here's 720/25. So that's what we're going to use, simply because the footage that we're going to use is going to match this. The background is going to be black. The timeline is 30 seconds, square pixels, and this is all fine. And there's lots of other settings we can muck about with, but we'll leave it for now. So I'm going to hit OK. So I have a blank composition or a blank project. I can zoom in and out here with the middle mouse wheel. So the first thing I'm going to do is import a piece of video. So I'm going to say import file, and on my desktop here I have this piece of footage here from Mr. Van Damme, and I'm going to double click on this and I'm going to move forward. I'm going to start here. I'm going to mark my endpoint, and then I'm using the page up, page down keys to frame forward and back. So it's going to take a couple of seconds of this. I think it's only a couple of seconds long anyway. Some fantastic hammy acting. And we'll mark out at that. And then to put it down here, I'm just going to click on this here. So I'm going to insert edit. So now Mr. Van Damme is on my timeline. So as we can see, this is the timeline. It works in a slightly different way to some of the other packages that we've used. So you've got this little arrow here that opens up all the properties of the video track, and we'll get to some of them in a minute. So the next thing we want is to bring in a background. So I'm going to import another file from my desktop, and I'm going to get this here and import it. And where did I get that? I got that from a Google search with so labeled for use with modification. So I just grabbed this first one here. So now what you'll be doing is you'll be working on a sequence to try and tell some sort of comic story using this footage here. But I just want to show you the kind of basic setup for really basic sort of green screening. So I'm going to take this background image and place it on the timeline, and note that this layer is on top of this one. So next, what I want to do is I want to turn off this top layer, and we can see that the background isn't quite big enough. So I should really pick a different image, but just for convenience here, I'm just going to grab the corner of it and scale it up. Now it's going to pixelate, and it's not a great idea, but for what we're doing now, that's just fine. So now I'm going to turn Mr. Van Damme back on, and I want to remove the green. So to do that, I right click on the clip, and I go to effects, I go to keying, and I pick this one here, key light. And over here now we've got, instead of a sort of a media tab or a project tab, we have the sort of the properties of this effect. So it is now listed under effects, and we can actually access all of this material here if we wanted as well. So this is sort of a duplicate of what's up here. So it says screen color, so I'm going to grab the color picker and just pick green, and that is a really good key. So we can zoom in here and we can see that it's done a very, very good job. Now there's lots of other tools here that we will explore when we're doing this in class. but and we'll probably end up having to use masks to do a garbage matte, so we'll kind of draw a mask around the actor. But for now, we'll just leave that with having used the key light. So we can see our background and our actor is doing a wonderful performance. And just the last thing we're going to do is just to sort of add to the sort of, to try and integrate the two of these, is I'm going to do a little bit of work in 3D. So I'm going to right click here, I'm going to say new camera. And it's going to ask me what the focal length of the camera should be and some of the settings. So just for now, we'll just hit OK and just bring it in with its default setting. So it's a 36mm chip size, and the angle of view is 27 degrees. So we'll hit OK, and we'll just skip past that and go OK. So here's my camera. Now, unlike in video editing packages, we have this little pull down menu here. So it says active camera, and then we have these other views. So if I go from top and I zoom out a bit, you can see that this is totally different to what we're used to for video editing. So I select the Jean-Claude Van Damme clip here, and I can open up and I can go to its position. So it's only got X and Y in its position. So I want to make this clip a 3D clip, and how I do that is by turning this on. It's this little cube here. So without these two turned on here, this effect won't work. So now you can see that I've got an arrow I can pull forward here. Actually, the easiest way to move him forward is to change the Z-axis value. So we'll bring him forward slightly. Now let's see what that has done. So let's just do it again now. So I can move him back. Now he's behind the background image. He's in front and moving towards us. Now we have to be careful not to do this too much, because he'll pixelate as he gets closer to the camera. If we do sort of an extreme version of that, actually we'll just leave it for now, but if you bring him too close, the image will degrade. And then we'll reposition him, maybe slightly lower, and bring him over to the left a little bit. Now, so that's fine, so I can reposition him in 3D space. And why would I want to do that? Well, what I want to do with the camera is I want to move the camera to make it look like I'm tracking forward into the scene. So I'm going to, with the position of the camera, press this little icon here, which is basically add keyframes. So I'm adding a keyframe to its position. I'm going to move to the end of the clip, and then I'm going to move the camera on its Z-axis slightly forward. And you can see it's added a little kind of diamond in here to indicate that there's a keyframe. So I'm just going to look at this from the top so you can see the camera moving. So this is the camera tracking forward in 3D space, moving forward. Now we can get in and do an awful lot of interesting work with this. We can change the depth of field of the camera so things move in and out of focus as it moves through 3D space. But for now we're not going to do that. We're going to we'll add one more little effect, which is we'll take our background, which is this image here, we'll right click, we'll go effects and blur, and we'll take just a very simple Gaussian blur, and we'll increase the value of it just a little bit, just so Mr. Van Damme pops out a little bit more, and we can kind of fake our depth of field a bit more. So that's our shot, and what we'll be doing is creating a sequence of these to tell a very short and hopefully comic story. Alright, so that's enough for now.